Morning folks, how you doing? Saturday morning, up in Scotland still. So yesterday was the 100th anniversary of the Psalm, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I think it's important too. You know, we're taught to remember World War One, the tragedy that it was World War One, the unknown soldier, the millions of people who gave their lives, those brave men and boys that never came home, unborn generations lost, and we're taught to remember it as some sort of great sacrifice, that these people gave their lives for something greater. And every year we're taught to remember this, and it's reinforced. But I would like to teach us about another history, because I think it's important that we actually start to really learn the history of World War One and what World War One truly represents. And the reason I think it's important that we learn it now more than ever is because of what's happening with the European Union and what is happening in Europe and what is happening in countries elsewhere outside of the European Union. But let's talk about World War One, shall we, for a minute. You know, you ask any school child why we went to war, and they'll tell you the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. It's reinforced, it's over and over, bang, 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 bang. That is why we went to war. The reality is there was lots of assassinations happening at that time. Archduke Ferdinand was just another one of them. It was a catalyst. The reality is that prior to World War One, and all through the 19th century, and the Industrial Revolution, workers were being exploited to the maximum. And there was massive social unrest all across. George V even admitted that if there wasn't war, there would be civil war. And this was a situation that was in all of these countries. We don't hear the BBC talking about that, do we? We don't hear the BBC telling us that there was a decrease in nationalism in countries all across Europe prior to World War One. Intellectual, you had your H.G. Wellses, you had intellectual people that you had the Dada movement in art, you had people moving forward. It was a great time intellectually, because people actually believed in a real humanity, a real progressive history for mankind. But that wasn't to be, unfortunately, because the entrenched elites wanted to make sure that they maintained their power, and they were terrified that they were going to lose it, their privilege. And World War One had to be exceptionally bloody. It had to be exceptionally bloody to match the civil unrest, the civil anger, because it was raging. A little war wouldn't have done it. After World War One, people didn't talk about revolution. If it was kind of faded and half-hearted. That's part of the history of World War One that I wanted you to remember. And the reason I think it's important, as I said, is because it ties very much into what's happening here in Europe with these referendums, or these supposed referendums that everybody's going to be having now to break away from that horrendous fascist monstrosity, the European Union. Now, the European Union is a horrendous fascist monstrosity. Breaking away from the European Union is not going to do us any good. It's going to focus attentions away from the fact that we're actually really pissed off with those entrenched elites. The entrenched elites that we were pissed off with 100 years ago. They're still here. They're still exploiting. They're still stealing money. They're still stealing land. They're still stealing resources. They're still murdering men, women, children, boys, girls, poisoning water, dropping bombs, and they tell you it's all a necessity. So when you hear, as you surely will over the next couple of hours or coming days, when you remember World War One, start to look at the real history. Why we really went to war then. There was nothing to do with Archduke Ferdinand being murdered. Don't listen to this nostalgic rhetoric.